Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, Journey 2, Izzy Rose Collection. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to talk about storytelling. So let me put in the chat. Story challenge. Q and A. Oh, shit. Challenge Q and A. Okay. There we go. If you have any questions, just put it in the sticker chat, please. Hi, Angelina. Hi, Studio. Hi, Senar. Esmeralda. Hey, C. How are you? Hi, Rosalinda. Great to see you guys. So this week we're doing the 5-day challenge. A lot of you guys are doing the 5-day challenge. And basically what we're doing is we're going back to our history and figuring out what are the stories that connects the dots that make us who we are. Hey, Patty. Hey, Sue. Good morning. And then based on that, we're gonna you can kind of map out like who you are, and you can dig into each one of those stories, and you can like come up with so many stories. And one of the things that I learned yesterday, we did a session where, oh, what's going on? What's going on with my internet? Okay, are you guys here? Okay, good. Awesome. See, that's awesome. Mic. I'm using this mic here. I bought this one from Amazon. I just put it here. I have it over here because I'm also using this mic for I go live on YouTube at the same time. So hi, Ellie. Yeah, so if you have any questions, like down here, put it in the sticker set. If you have any questions about storytelling, the story 5-day story challenge, if you're stuck or anything like that, bonjour. Put it in the sticker chat, and then I'll answer them. Yeah, so basically, if you haven't been following the 5-day challenge, what it is we're making a list of all of our past stories, and then picking one and just digging in deep, and then trying to see all sides of that story. And yesterday, what we did was we did a Q&A session of everybody that's been writing the stories. Good afternoon. Hi, Sharon. And what we found is that, like what I found is that the best way to practice storytelling is to, in my opinion, just to go ahead and tell the story, exactly what happened, like second to second, and then try to figure out what is the meaning of that story, what's the point of that story, or something like that. All right, let's go through the questions now. If you guys have any questions, by the way, put it in the sticker, and then if you want to vote up the questions you like, just vote it up. Hey, Jonathan. Okay, Arsh Mahaj Mal. What type of storytelling can make the reader land in DMs? How can I make it curious? Okay, so I think the key thing about story is understanding. So for example, you don't really have a story unless you learned a lesson from this story. There's something like this happened, hey Tabitha, this happened, and then from that event, something triggered you, and then you learn the lesson from there. And then, so what I would do is, if you're telling a story, I would put myself in the shoe of the point of view of the person who's struggling with that thing, who's struggling with the thing that you're gonna talk about, right? And really figure out what they need to hear. And I think that every story should really start with that, from the audience's point of view. But if you want to talk about how do you get people to land in your DM, let's talk about that. So on Instagram, if you want people to land in your DM, the best way to do that is through Instagram stories. And what you have to do is you have to teach. Because you, like, a lot of people think that a lot of people think that if you teach or you give away information, then what, they're not going to buy from me if I give everything away, right? But it's actually the opposite. Every time I teach, every time I talk about storytelling, or every time I talk about design, or every time I teach, like, for example, I did a thing about how to start your podcast, right? And I say, oh, use Riverside, use this software, use this, and boom, boom, and then, and then upload it on this software, and then make a podcast. Now, when you do that, so many people are gonna come back to me is like, how do you do this? Like, oh, how did you do that here? And they're gonna come back and ask more questions. So if you actually do it in stories, what they're gonna do is they're just gonna ask the questions right there in the stories. So that's just gonna increase DMs, and that's like the best way to like generate leads, actually. Esmeralda, selling through stories. Okay. So if you want to sell through stories, I think what you need to understand is what is the people struggling with. So, like if you look at Shark Tank, right? You always see like people that always get the investment are the ones that had a story, and it's usually goes something like, I was having this problem, and I was struggling with this, and I was like looking everywhere to find this product, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I just ended up, making it myself, and then that this solved my problem, like that, right? So if you want to sell through stories, you really have to put yourself in the shoe of your customer and figure out what are they struggling with. And then basically a story is this, like story is before and after, right? I was struggling with this before, and then now I'm not struggling with it anymore. So what happened? What happened in between that made you go from struggling to not struggling, right? So that's how you sell. So to give you an example, like let's say for us at Night Owl, our agency, a lot of people that come to us is because they want like a really fancy design or fancy storytelling on their website, right? So when they come to us, I'm gonna be like, hey, how, like, I need to find I need to understand the problem that client is dealing with. And one thing I do know is that a lot of our clients who's worked with other designers or hire other design agencies before, a lot of them say that that like they've worked with designers where they do the design, but then at the end it didn't turn out as it didn't look like the design. The final product doesn't look like the original design or something like that, right? So sometimes I will go into the sales meeting and I'll say that, right? Like a lot of times what happens is you're gonna hire a designer, and that designer is gonna design something, and then you're gonna hand it off to the developer, and then they're gonna have some problem. They're like, oh, I can't do this part, blah, blah, blah. And then there's some miscommunication there, and at the end, the final website doesn't look anything like the original design. It's all ugly and shit, right? So when I say that, they're gonna be like, oh shit, yeah, I'm going through that right now. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what happened. That's what happened to us, right? In the last 3 years or whatever. Then I'm gonna be like, well, you know what? That's why what we do is our designer and developer works together from the beginning of the project. So they're talking to each other. They know like what they can do, what they can't do, like everything, all of that is done. So by the time we come to the finished product, it's gonna look exactly how the design looked. So there's an example of how you can use story. Ellie asked, if we share the story on day 4, I am curious what is left for day 5. Delete it? Yeah. Day 5, you just start all over again. Okay. I have a question from Sharon. If you record the story, it takes about 2 minutes. How can you put that in stories to keep them interested? I mean, 2 minutes is not bad. What I would do is, if you're gonna put that in Instagram stories, you can use this app called Cut Story. And what Cut Story will do is it'll take that clip and it'll break it into multiple clips that you can use on Instagram. Instagram now allows up to 1 minute, so you can do that in stories. I guess another thing you can do is you can edit it out, but you know what I found is this: if your story is really good, one of the things that I talk about is killing your darlings, right? We have to look at every paragraph, every sentence, every word to make sure, is this absolutely necessary? If it's not, then you have to remove it. Do you know what I mean? And if you do that, if you keep doing that and really get it down to the essence of the story, like you should be able to tell your same story. Okay, here. There should be multiple versions of that story. So like every story that I tell, I have like the long 10-minute version of it, but I also have like a 20-second elevator pitch version of it, just 3 sentences, right? So whatever story you have, as long as it's structured correctly and you have the essence of the story, you should be able to say that story in 3 sentences. You should be able to say it in 30 seconds, 1 minute. Like you should be able to tell that story in different lengths. You know what I mean? So you should probably have, and one of the things that you do that is you have to keep telling that story over and over and over again. Because you have to keep telling the story over and over, because otherwise what happens is every time you tell that story, you're going to realize something. You're going to recognize something either from like audience reaction or something like that. And you might tweak something. You might add this. You might remove this part. And like you're going to keep polishing it. And after a while, you're going to figure out exactly what are the core parts of the story that you need to keep or something like that. So if you guys have any questions, just put it in the question tab down here. Okay. Next question. This is MDR. Does the story need to have a pain point? The way I look at it is this, right? I think pain point is really like for selling. If you're using story to sell a product, or if you're using story like if you're on a sales page or something like that, then I think you need a pain point, because like people are not going to buy something if there's no pain point, right? But if you're just telling like a brand story, or if you're just telling a educational story, or like if you're making an Instagram reel or something like that, what I would do is I would focus less on the pain and more on the myth and the truth. So remember, like I said, that a story is like before and after, right? There's a transformation. That can also happen in form of myth and truth. Like like myth, I used to think this way. I used to be not confident, blah, 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 until this happened, and then now I became more confident, or something like that, right? Like the story, like an example is the story that I tell is, hey, I used to think that when I first got my internship, I thought I was an imposter because I wasn't using a Mac, I was using a PC, until like one of the art director called me a designer in client meeting, and that kind of like broke my imposter syndrome. So something like that. Sorry guys, my internet is kind of acting up. Let me see if I can do anything there. Okay. Okay, let me know in the chat if you can see me and you can hear me. I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me and see me and all that. Okay, let's move to the next question. Okay, we just did this one. Yeah, so try to find, hey Jerry, try to find the myth truth in the story. Okay, let's move to the next one. Is my sound off? Oh, no sound? You said no sound? Okay, guys, you know what I'm gonna do actually? I'm gonna end this session. I'm gonna come back because I think there's something wrong with my phone. So I'll be right back. Okay, okay, everybody on YouTube. Sorry about that. All right, I'm retrying on Instagram to see if this works. Okay. Hi, Becca. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Hello? Can you guys hear me? Hello? Let me know if you guys can hear me or can't hear. Okay, good. Thanks, Tabitha. Okay, awesome. We're back. I feel like my iPhone is like kind of acting up. Maybe it's like a sign, like Apple wants me to buy a new iPhone. Okay, let's go back to the. So again, if you guys have any questions about storytelling, just put it in the question tab here, and then I'll answer it. Awesome. Okay. Hey Jerry. Hi Marcella. Hello everyone. Welcome back. Hey Gigi. Hey Isabel. Hey Tabitha. Okay. Let's continue. Ideal and Mini. How to go after the big market and charge a lot for the people that are not in the self-help community. Okay. So if you want to charge a lot, if you're like a freelancer or any kind of service provider and you want to charge a lot, you want to go after the big market, what you need to do is you need to specialize. Because what happens a lot of times is, it's freezing up again. What the fuck? Why does this keep happening? Okay. A lot of the times what happens is when a new freelancer starts coming, like new freelance designer or something like that come out, what they do is they want to charge, they want to call themselves a full service agency. Is it freezing again? Okay, I think something's wrong with my internet. Let me try this. All right, is that better? Can you guys hear me now? Is it still glitchy? Hello, 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 hello. Testing, testing, testing. Can everyone hear me on Instagram? Sorry about that, guys. It's having a little bit of. Okay, okay, you can hear me now. Okay, let's continue. Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, so what a lot of people do is when they're just starting out, they call themselves a full service agency and they say, oh, I can design the logo, I can do your website, I can do your brochure, I can do all of that, right? But the truth is, the only companies that are looking for all of that is people that are like small mom and pop shops or restaurants or something like that. They need all of that, right? Like they're the only ones. So a lot of times it's counterintuitive. Like the way you're gonna get big clients is big clients need specific people to do specific tasks. Like for example, a big client might want a developer who works specifically on hospital softwares because of the system that they use, right? Or big client might want like somebody who builds website specifically using WordPress or Shopify or something like that, right? So you really, really need to go specific because, when you work with a big client, like big clients have a huge team. So they have an expert in every area of that department. So what you need to do is you basically have to specialize in one thing, and you have to become like the expert in that. Otherwise, it's gonna be really hard for you to climb up that. And also another thing about big clients is like big clients are not on Instagram, not on Google, not on Dribble or anything like that looking for people. You know what I mean? Like if big clients are like let's say let's say I'm a CMO or like I'm a marketing director at some company or something like that. Like what I'm doing is first of all, I already probably know a lot of people that I can hire. That's like one of their jobs. Or if not, I would probably go to other people and be like, "Hey, do you know a designer, or do you know somebody who specializes in this?" Like, I would just ask around, right? I'm not gonna go on Google and search for it. Like most people at that level are, they're asking other people that they've worked with, not So you really like people who, if there's anybody think here that because some creative people think that they can do it all. Like if there's anyone here who thinks like they're like an island, right? Oh, my work speaks for itself. I don't need anybody, right? That's just not gonna work in business. Like in business, there's no way you're gonna grow your business without other people, without the help of other people. You gotta throw that ego out the window. Okay. I couldn't identify the villain in my story. I guess like maybe Rob, you need to come to Sunday service and tell us the story this week, so we can see if we can identify the villain. Like the point of that exercise on day 3 is not to identify the villain, but to see like how I am the villain, right? How I may be the villain of some story, right? So for example, when I was young, and that story where my mom kind of made me stay up because I didn't do my homework, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna do my. And then my mom made me stay up till like 3 a.m. And to me, she's the villain, right? Because she's making me stay up. I don't want to. But then finally, when I put my head down, because I knew that she's not letting me go to sleep, I was able to finish that homework. Like when I put my head down and just did it, right? So she taught me a lesson. So, but then to her, I'm the villain, right? Because they're probably going like, this fucking son, he's not, he's not. I need to go to work tomorrow, and he's gonna like. That's actually one of the things that I also realized later on in life. Because when I became an adult and I started running my own business, there were just so many little things that I know I should do. I know I should check in with my employees, or I should check on this. I know that I should do those things, but which I never did, right? Because I was lazy, or it was like, oh man, it's too much work or something like that. And that really made me appreciate. It's like, oh man, like it wasn't easy for my mom to stay up till 3 a.m. to make sure I do my homework. Like that couldn't be easy for her. But like the fact that she did that could have been also a lesson that I didn't really realize, right? I didn't know that. Here's the thing about those lessons, right? You don't really know that was the lesson until, like, for example, me at 11-year-old, I'm not sitting there going like, "Ooh, I learned this lesson," or "Ooh, oh my gosh," like, "Oh, like I must be the villain to my mom. Like, we don't realize that, but trust me, we're still learning the lesson. We may not have processed it in our head. Like, we don't understand that that's the lesson, but we learn the lesson in our body, right? And that's why, like, when people say, like, the story that you tell yourself, what's happening is, through a traumatic event or through some sort of an event like that, we've had trauma. And my body have learned, okay, my body learned that, okay, push comes to shove when there's a deadline. If I really push myself, I can make it happen. And I've had that experience over and over again. Like, whereas a deadline, I need to finish this, and this is like something that should take me a week, but I'll code it, and like in like one night I'll finish everything or something like that, right? Or the night before I'll finish the report. And we learn those in our body. I just can't process it in my head. Like, I can't tell the story about it, but we learned it, right? And the exercise that we're doing right now is we're going now back in time machine, right? We're going back to those moments and trying to process it logically. Like, okay, we did learn it in our body, but how can we reverse engineer to see exactly what we learned? And that's actually what the storytelling part is. You know what I mean? So that's why I think the best way to do it is for you to just tell the story, because you might not know what the story means or what the lesson is yet, but just go ahead and tell the story as honestly as you can, and then let other people tell you what the lesson is. Because you might be surprised. You might tell a story to a group of people, and this person might take away one thing, but this person might take away something else or something like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I'll say about that, Rob. Hi, Ava. Hi, Eva. Okay, Jonathan, what will you recommend for someone not naturally emotional to share their story? I mean, I don't think you have to force yourself to be emotional. Like, I think what you should do is you should not shy away from the truth. Because every time I ask somebody to tell me a story, they're always like beating around the bush. It seems like there's something there. Here's the thing. When you guys tell stories in small groups and things like that, what ends up happening is you don't actually like pick apart that story, which is what should happen. Like, if I spend, like, say 5 minutes stories, like telling stories, right? What I would do is, after that, usually I see that, okay, there's a hole here in the story. Okay, there's a hole here missing in the story, or there's something else missing here. Hey, Eva, there's something else missing here. Something like that, right? And I have to ask them, okay, what exactly happened here? Okay. Oh, so why did you do that? Okay. Oh, what happened? Like, they'll say something like this. Oh, so yeah, but anyway, long story short, something happened, and that's why I couldn't go. I'm like, okay, what happened? Like, tell me what happened, right? And a lot of times those are signs. Like, we have things in our stories that we don't really want to share because maybe it's embarrassing. Maybe we think maybe it's shameful. Maybe we think people are going to judge us. So we don't want to, there are certain things that we tiptoe around. Oh, I don't want to tell this part. Oh yeah. So, so I did something bad and I got in trouble. What did you do? I went to, I really like this girl, but then I got rejected. Okay, what exactly happened? How did you do it, and what did she say? Right, the juicy details. Right, a lot of times people don't want to give that, and they just skip right over that part. Like, skip right. So what I do when I hear a story, I listen and I'm like, wait, what happened there? Oh wait, what happened there? What you're skipping all the juicy good parts. That's how I feel like, right? So, yeah, whenever a story... So you don't have to be emotional. Just don't leave out the juicy good parts. Just say all of it in detail. And then it'll all automatically resonate. Like, people will automatically resonate with it. The reason if people don't resonate with it is because you're leaving something out. I guarantee you, it's because you're leaving something out. There's something that you're afraid to share or something like that. Okay, Carlington Thomas. When it comes to framework for storytelling, do you start with nightmare problem, the moment that something changed, what that thing was? If only I knew, had this earlier, how can benefit CT8? Thanks, homie. Yeah, you can use all of their frameworks, right? You can use the setup conflict resolution, right? You can use the hero's journey. You can use like all of that, right? But here's how I would do it. Because to me, storytelling is much more than just trying to fit this structure and force this to happen or something like that. Like whenever I hear a story that's like forced, it's just something doesn't add up. I'm like, no, that didn't hit me, right? But here's the thing. The truth just sounds different. When somebody says the truth, it just sounds different, okay? So here's how I would do it, right? Instead of trying to like force this story to happen or something like that, I would just get into the practice of storytelling, like every day, every week or something like that. Just come up with like a memory and just try to tell that story exactly as it happened. No agenda, not trying to sell anything, not trying to convince, not trying to come up with a lesson, not trying to figure out what the meaning of the story is, but just tell it exactly how it happened, as detailed as you can. And keep doing that practice, right? And then let people tell you what that means. What's the lesson here, right? And then I'm going to try to bounce off of that, right? And that practice of it, constantly doing it, you're going to have like a shitload of stories. And then you're also going to have, you're going to figure out, okay, that story, the lesson is here. Boom, 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 boom. And so once you have all of this story, then it becomes easy, right? And then it becomes like, okay, this client is struggling, or this client doesn't have the budget to make a website. So, okay, I have a story for that. The story is, okay, I was afraid to invest in this, but after I invested, whatever it is, right? That like you're gonna have a list of, but the best way I think to do it is to start from the story, meaning start from the thing that happened, and then try to find the meaning behind it. Don't try to come up with like, this is the message I want to say, and I'm gonna try to force a story into that. Like that, I just feel like becomes so fake, you know. Awesome. Let's go to the next one. Wolf, how do the stories we tell ourselves impact the people we become? Okay, awesome. This is how I'm gonna explain it, right? By the way, Ellie and the people on YouTube, I'll get to your chat in a second. This is how I explain it. So I think when you look back and look at all of those memories, all those tiny little stories that happened in your life, the reason why you remember them is because they were there's trauma attached to it, right? I'm not a doctor, but this is how I explain it. So let's say this is your life, right? And then this happened. Like here, I'll give you a good example. Let's say I start a company and my first client didn't pay me. Okay? And I was 100% expecting to get paid, but that client didn't pay me. Now, that's traumatic for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell myself this story is like, oh, clients don't pay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this structure in my business where, like it's very strict and but then the thing is, the truth is no, like most clients actually do pay. It was just that one client, right? So what happens is we live life like that. Through all the experiences that we have, whenever we have traumatic events like that defines how we act then, right? And now so when you talk about the stories we tell ourselves, that's what's happening, right? When we're young, and let's say you got punished from your parents because, maybe you spent too much money, then that traumatic event, because that was unexpected, that gets implemented in your brain, right? And everything from that point on, you're living your life through that lens. You're like, oh, like if I spend too much money, like people are gonna like abandon me. People, like right, you're living like that, right? Until something else happens, and then so every one of those moments is actually defining who you are. Here's the crazy part. I think trauma happens instantly. Meaning like one activity can happen and you can boom, completely change the way you are, right? Like trauma. But then healing happens over time. So a lot of times when people say, oh, this happened and then I'll become like this, it's usually a series of events that happen, series of stories that happen that reinforced that healing story. And that's how you change. So, for example, it might be one traumatic event that got you into addiction, but then you have to have a lot of moments where the lot of moments where you learn that, oh, by getting out of addiction, it's actually better, right? And that has to happen over long periods of time for you to actually learn that, heal from that. So that's okay. I'll just leave it at that for now. Wolf. Gabriella Cancia. How to use storytelling to have clients? That's a really deep question. That's a really like multiple, like loaded question. But on a high level, I would say this. Whenever I never have problem getting clients or closing clients or things like that, because I feel like storytelling has become such a part of me that whenever I'm having a conversation with people, I'm like really in tune. I'm trying to listen to what is it that they're struggling with. Okay, they had this scenario. Okay, they told me this. They told me this. So based on your story, their story, what I do is, okay, let me tell this story. Because if I tell this story now, they're going to relate. They're going to be like, oh shit, yeah, that's happening to me, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use story to relate to people. If somebody says they're struggling with because their designer sucks. If some guys, like for example, a lot of designers I know, they struggle with delegating. They don't trust any other designers. So they can't delegate. They'll be like, oh, I'll just do it myself, right? So then I would start there like, hey, are you having trouble delegating? Like every time you give a designer something, it comes back and it's like totally wrong. And it's like, oh, it's gonna be too much work for you to explain and train them. So you just end up doing it yourself. Right? Like I'll tell that story because I know that if you're struggling with that, that's going to resonate with you, So the whole point of telling story is to make that connection, to make it relatable to the audience. Okay, let me go to YouTube for a second. Ellie, can you share one story which you have helped to write for a personal brand and the story behind it? That's a good one. I mean, I think here's like a really, really simple one. Do you guys know Dhar Mann? So there's a YouTuber named Dhar Mann, and he makes these like YouTube videos, and all of those YouTube videos are basically stories, right? And I basically listen to all of his stories, and he had that rock bottom moment where he came up on all of that. But the one thing that we keep coming back to over and over and over is storytelling. Like how everything that he's doing, like on his content, everything, it's storytelling, right? So the story we came up with him for is like his name is Dhar Mann. At the rock bottom moment, like the story is basically the depth, the whole quote, the depth of your despair determines the height of your success, right? So that was like, through his rock bottom moment, he kept seeing that, because what happened was for him, he started this business and failed. He started this business and failed. And it's like, why am I keep failing? Why am I getting keep ripped off and all of that? And the underlying thing was him, right? The common denominator is him. So he had to go deep and figure that out. And at that rock bottom moment, he kept, hearing that quote. So that became kind of like the underlying thing of that message. So, yeah. And because because everything he does is storytelling. Like all of the videos, he's just telling a story and he's teaching a lesson through story. Because of that, what we did was, yeah, I mean, you should just go look at the website. It's starman.com, and then if you go to the about page, so we basically play with this idea of being a superhero, like how the darkest moments in your life is what makes you into a hero. Like your struggle. Oh yeah. So the line that we came up with is your struggle becomes your superpower. Yeah, I mean, if you go to darman.com and then just click on about, you'll be able to see. What if we forgot some of the details of the story? Then you gotta go back and you have to keep digging. Because I mean, if you completely forgot it, it means it's probably not relevant. But you should be able to, if you go back, this is a practice. If you go back, keep going back over and over and over again, you should be able to remember. Okay, NSC Canvas. Can you give me an example of a story where you are the victim and a villain? Okay, like perfect example is this, right? I mean, okay, let's go over that story again. The story where my mom made me stay up all night to finish my homework, right? Like at that point, I'm the victim. I'm like, oh, I can't believe she's making me do this. There's no way I can do this. I don't even understand anything in this. I don't understand English. How I'm gonna do this? And I'm playing the victim. I'm like, oh, me, like me. Like I can't because of this. I can't because I don't speak English. I can't because I don't have time. Whatever. I can't. And my mom is the villain, right? But then, like, if I flip that narrative from my mom's perspective, it's like, oh, this fucking son won't go to sleep. Like son won't finish the homework, so I have to stay up and blah, blah, blah. And to her, I'm the villain and she's the victim, right? So, I mean, I think not every story is going to have that. But if it's a traumatic event or it has something to do with emotionally, I think you will see that. And the whole point of this exercise is not to make sure that there is a villain. The point of this exercise is for you to see your own stories from a third person's perspective. Because a lot of times what's happening is, like, when people tell stories to themselves where they're like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or all of those things, it's because when we were a child, somebody told us that, or somebody punished us for that, or whatever. Some traumatic event happened where, oh, I'm not smart enough, right? Or something like that. And then ever since then, as you get older, what's happening is you're telling yourself that, oh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not, like, you're telling yourself that thing, and you're not really able to see things from an objective perspective, right? Like, I'm trying to come up with like a really, really surreal, like a really good example. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a good example is this, right? Like somebody who like have problem with drinking, and they go to a party, and they think they can control it, like, oh, I'll just have one more, or I'll just have one more, blah, blah, blah. They think they can control it. A lot of times what's happening is, the person who thinks they're smart is the one that's least self-aware, and they're the ones that are like, everybody else sees their flaw except yourself. That's what's happening. Like, your ego won't let you see your own flaws. Like, so the whole point of doing this exercise is to get out of your ego, like drop your ego, get out of yourself, see yourself from a third person perspective, and see the truth. Like, is it really, and was I really the victim? Was I really, was I really the hero? Was this person really the villain? And a lot of times what I love is that a lot of times it's not that clear cut. It's very yeah. It's world doesn't work like that. World doesn't work like, there's good and evil inside. There's both good and evil inside you. If you think that certain people are evil, some people are good, and some people are bad, like, that's just not the truth. Okay, let's move on. Karova, please give us tips on how to generate more audience participation and thus gain deeper understanding of the market. What do they feel? What do they think? What motivates them? Here's what I'll say. Like, I mean, that's a loaded question, but I'm gonna try to like get a sense of what you want to hear or something like that, right? And here's what I think. If you want to use storytelling to like get a sense of what your audience wants and things like that, I think that means you're not in the right business. Like, here's the thing, right? If you're selling coffee, you better fucking know what people want in coffee, right? If you're selling computers, you better fucking know what people want in computers, right? If you're selling marketing, if you're selling Instagram growth, whatever you're selling, you better fucking know what they want. Otherwise, it's literally your only job, right? As an entrepreneur, your only job is to identify a problem in the market. You solve that problem by inventing a product that's going to solve that problem. And once you do that, right? So if you don't know what they're struggling in, what their pain point is, that means you don't even know if your product works or not. So you're like, you have to start from the point where, does people even give a fuck about this? Do people even give a shit? Are people even want what I'm buying? Or am I just creating a fucking useless product that nobody wants? Because so many people are like that. So many people create products that nobody wants. Like, so many people come to, oh son, like I have my idea is I'm gonna build an app that's gonna do this, and then so it's an all-in-one app that I'm like, nobody asked. Like, why are you building something that nobody asked for, right? So if you built the product that you need to sell, that means you already identified that market. You already know that there's an audience out there that asks for that, what they're struggling with, and based on that, you built the product. So the storytelling should come natural to you at that point, right? I think what's really happening is that a lot of people want to do the marketing and sales and all of that when they don't know their product, they don't know their industry that well, haven't really solved any problem. Maybe their product is shit, and they don't understand their customers. Then it's not going to work. The reason why I'm able to tell those stories is because I know from talking to so many clients, I know how much they're willing to spend. I know what's expensive. I know what's not. I know what they're struggling with. I know, I know all of that. I know the exact problems they're struggling with. And that's just the outcome of just being in this business for 20 years. Do you understand what I mean? Like that, and that's what expertise is, right? You know what I mean? So, you can't, like, here's the thing, right? Oh, can you teach me great storytelling, son? Can you teach me great storytelling so I can convince my customer and understand my customer, blah, blah. Okay. Like, you can't be a great storyteller if you don't have any stories to tell. So all of those things that your clients are dealing with, have you experienced those? Have you seen them in your life? Have you actually went through them? Because if you actually went through them and you've seen them, you would know all of that. You would know those stories. You would know what all those are. So don't put the cart before the horse, right? Like, start with figuring out what problem you're solving, what your product is first, and then figure out how to market it. Don't try to fucking figure out, I don't have a product yet. I don't know what my product is. I don't know what it's good for, but I need to find a market for it. I need to sell it. That's the whole fucking problem. That's why there's so many fucking garbage products out there. People pay this money to buy this course and they never open it. And 80% of the customers never fucking open it because it was just fucking an empty, useless product that was just sold to them through marketing. Okay, next. Marcella Robaldo. What if I find different meaning of a story? How can I make, how can I make that's the whole point. When I tell a story, usually every time I tell a story, I see completely different meaning in it. Like one story usually will have like 3 to 5 different meaning, 3 to 5 different lessons, depending on what parts of the story, what parts people might resonate with. And that's the reason why I say you just have to go ahead and just tell it. You have to tell your whole story without any filters, and people will come up with different lessons. And if you guys are not in Night Owl Nation, that this is the beauty, right? If you're in Night Owl Nation and you meet in small groups, the beauty is this: you can tell that story and let the small group members tell you what it means. Let them tell you, oh, that's the lesson I took away. This is the lesson I took away, or something like that. Yeah. So, yeah, you want to have different meaning. You know what I do sometimes? I'll tell the same story with one lesson, and then under a different context with different audience, I'll tell the same exact story with a different lesson. And that's completely fine. Okay. Let's move on. Gautam Suganda. How to know where to tell the story. Everywhere. Guys, you should really be practicing story should be all the time. For example, like I'm doing it right now. I just said, for example, right? So one of the things that you can do is every time you make a statement, hey, this is really good. Hey, you should try that. Hey, you should do this because it's better. For example, right? So you kind of have to be practicing storytelling all the time. Every time when you're with a friend, like, so there has to be a time when you're just coming up with the story, like digging up your past, digging up your memories, and coming up with the story. And then when you're with your friends, you tell that story. When you're at dinner, tell the story. When you're at a dinner party, tell your story. When you're at a networking party, tell that story. When you're on stage, tell the story. On your Instagram stories, tell your stories. On Instagram Reels, just keep telling stories. Yeah, you can control your small talks with stories. Yeah, so just wherever you go, keep telling stories. And I think that's why a small group is such a great, because small group forces you to show up and keep practicing. And when you practice storytelling like that, at some point you don't even have to do that. Like you'll just be in a conversation and you'll just connect the dots and like you'll understand what they're trying to say. You'll know what to say. Like all of that will just come naturally to you without even thinking about it. You know what I mean? If you just keep practicing that. Branding Danny. How can I make the term storytelling something relatable for clients to invest in? The term storytelling, something relatable. I don't really understand that question. How can I make the term storytelling something relatable for clients to, like, if you mean like if you want to tell clients to invest in storytelling? I don't know. I feel like right now, you don't really need to sell storytelling. I feel like everyone kind of understands the value of storytelling. You know what I mean? So, but I don't know. You know what I always try to do? Is I try to figure out like what I'm trying to figure out what that audience is struggling with or what that audience is feeling. For example, like yeah, so for example, if I know that my client really really likes Mel Robbins, right? Let's say I'm working with a personal brand, and this personal brand is like a coach or something like that, and this coach really likes Mel Robbins. Like that's why they hire me, because they like Mel Robbins and they know that we did Mel Robbins' website, right? Then what I would say to that client is like, hey, do you know what makes Mel Robbins so amazing? Hey, did you ever watch this Impact Theory or did you ever watch this website? You see how she tells this story? And the story that she tells is what and you have to show them that, right? You have to show them that. Oh, it's like, you're right. Oh, that's the story that I love. Like that's why I love Mel Robbins, right? So a lot of times what I need to do with clients is I need to make them see what I see. And that's really the bulk of it. I need to understand where they are, and I need to make them see what I see. I need to, like, number one, I need to figure out what they're obsessed with. Because I know it's like some clients are like, oh, I just want my website like Apple. And they're obsessed with Apple, right? And some clients is like, oh, son, I just love Gabby Bernstein. Like, I just love, so I need to figure out what they're obsessed with, right? And then once I know what they're obsessed with, I can tell every story through that lens. Oh, you want to do that? Oh, you want like, you don't think storytelling is important? Oh, well, let me tell you about Mel Robbins' storytelling. Oh, you don't think this is important? Oh, let me tell you about what Mel Robbins did. Right? Like, it's kind of like I always put myself in their shoe and try to figure out what is it that they need to hear now. Okay, I'm gonna do 2 more questions and then we're gonna end it. But guys, in 2 hours, or actually in 1 hour, at 12 o'clock, yeah, in 1 hour, I'm gonna come back on live with Chris Do, and we're actually gonna do a whole storytelling masterclass. So if you really, really want to learn about storytelling and get into storytelling, come to that live in 1 hour, and we're gonna talk about. You're gonna learn shitload about storytelling. Okay, Miss J Souls, how would you use storytelling for a new product launch, selling to individuals? So, products are really, products are really. There's only 2 ways to sell it if you want to use storytelling. One, it's the what I call the inventor's journey, right? And it's the one you see in Shark Tank. Hey, have you ever have you ever had trouble with this and you got stuck and you were struggling with this? Well, guess what? So was I, and blah blah blah. And I told myself there's gotta be a better way, so I created this, right? Like I created this because it didn't exist out there. I was struggling with this, so like that makes it relatable, right? And that's kind of how that's how a lot of the Shark Tank stories are. The inventor one. The second one, another way to do it is to tell the customer story. Hey, are you struggling with this? Hey, are you doing this? Oh, hey, are you not able to get this client? I have this one client who was struggling the same thing with you. They thought that they didn't want to show up on video, so they couldn't grow Instagram. So what they did instead is I showed them how to do this, right? So telling a story, whatever that they're struggling with, figure out a story of a client that was struggling with the same thing and tell their story. Something like that. But if it's a new product, obviously you don't have a customer, so you're gonna have to. It has to be an inventor's journey, otherwise you don't really have a story. Okay. How do you close a big client? Okay, this is a good one to end on. So this is gonna be the last one, guys. This is how you close a big client. As you go up the chain, the hardest close in my experience, some of the hardest projects I closed are the lowest price, the cheapest projects. So when I was dealing with like $3,000, $5,000 projects, that was a lot of work to close. Okay? When I deal with $50,000, $100,000 projects, I close it like that. Just one phone call, quick. It's much, 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 much easier to close big clients than small clients. The only difference is because small clients will ask a million questions. They're using their money. They don't have money and shit like that. So they're like, oh, they want to save every dollar, right? Big clients are not like that. They have money, right? They're not worried about that. They're more worried about, can you do the job? Big clients, what they're worried about is, can you make me feel safe? If I hire you to do my website, is there going to be any headache, or am I going to be able to sleep at night with a peace of mind? That's what they're paying. And if you can deliver that, like, they're going to make quick decisions. So how do you close a big client? Number one, be good at what you do and solve their problem. If you know you can solve their problem and you can show them that you can solve their problem, then that should close itself. And big clients pay, actually, like the really big clients actually pay pretty quickly too. So unless it's like a huge corporation, then those takes forever. But anyway, that's it, everyone. So come back in 1 hour for the storytelling masterclass. I'll see you guys then. If you guys want to practice storytelling, go to practicestorytelling.com. If you go to practicestorytelling.com, you can do the 5-day challenge there. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone on IG. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, everyone on YouTube. See you. Bye, everyone. Cheers.